Foreignness and Friendship, a radio program with work in progress and conversations with artists and activists located along a vertical line from Nordic storytelling, crossing the multicultural Mediterranean Sea, heading towards the northeastern shore of Victoria Lake and preparing for a long walk through Bantu heritage, all the way to Transkei region in the Eastern Cape, South Africa. Welcome into our horizon. Du lytter til Fremmedhed og Bekendtskab. Et radioprogram for den vanvittige, den venlige og søde, men også for de onde, for dig. Velkommen til vores horisont. Der vil altid være en indledning og en afslutning på engelsk. Mange af samtalerne vil være på engelsk, eller det sprog, som falder mest naturligt. Ellers opererer vi foreløbig mest på dansk. Vi er in my footstep, et menneske, som skriver digte og anmeldelser på steder, hvor tilfældet opstår. Du kan vælge at følge i fodsporene. Vi tager intet ansvar for følgevirkninger. Og White African, som har et skæbnesvangert og konfliktfyldt forhold til sit eget navn. Men han er en mand, der mener, at man bør være taknemmelig for et navn, der er blevet en givet. Og derfor har han valgt at beholde det og lever i en modsætning. Et sted, der ikke giver mening og bevæges af kræfter på tværs af verden. Endelig Morten Randum, der er svær at definere. Knap nok et menneske. Føler sig mest hjemme i selskab med sort lesbisk erfaring. Men en kvinde er der næppe tale om. På alle måder et tvivlsomt subjekt. Endelig får vi indimellem også selskab af Maria Isuel og Marcus Netta. Maria rejser gennem et Europa, der ikke rigtig eksisterer. Hendes mand, Marcus, er som hans navn antyder lidt af et mysterium. Season 4, Part 2, Episode 23. In this episode, we will return to Miami. Here we are talking to one of the owners of the gallery space Dimension Variable, located in Little Habana in Miami. His name is Leyden Rodriguez-Casanova. We will also meet the Miami-based artist Edison Peñafíel, who was born in Ecuador. After traveling around the world during 2022 to visit larger art exhibitions and important art fairs, we were happy to return back home and discovering the high-level ambition in Louisiana Museum north of Copenhagen. The director of the museum, Paul Erik Tøjner, often highlights that the museum is blessed by having a board not compromising the artistic quality, not even if the world has been closed down for a couple of years because of a global pandemic. At the moment, Louisiana Museum has an important photographical exhibition with works by the Indian photographer Gauri Gill from New Delhi. In connection with these two conversations in Miami, we also discuss what a conversation about art is and try to detect the good from the bad from the ugly, and the ugly from the beautiful. In this context, we want to mention the curator Iben Bach Elmstrøm, who is hosting a number of art talks at Den Fri Udstillingsbygning in Copenhagen, connected to the exhibition with paintings by Oda Knudsen. The goal of these talks is to make conversations between artists about art and art practices while we are in the room with the paintings by Oda Knudsen. Art talks, interviews and conversation about contemporary art. I have decided to return to Miami. In Miami, we had a couple of conversations with an artist and a gallerist, which we have not yet exploited thoroughly. But more importantly, we would like to linger on how is a conversation about art, or what does a really good, profound conversation sound like? Very often we meet the expression art talk, but an art talk can be many different things. Sometimes it's just another reporter's interview without taking the art seriously or understanding the artist. Many times the artist will also leave the artistic practice while being interrogated. Our aim is to have conversations which view the world from inside the artistic mindset. We need to take the perspective of the other. Art is an othering. Somebody or someone, maybe something, wanting to be part of the world, applying to be human, but facing the impossibility of being invited. The artist is someone never accepted. It is an outlaw. But the artist will never stop believing in the future, always heading towards one day where the other will experience inclusion and be welcomed with open arms into community. Art is the continuous application to be human. Many times we find ourselves around the world in places where we do not belong, though we in these places of othering and alienation still manage to engage into relations of friendship and even love. In Miami in December last year, we attended Untitled Art. Here we met Leyden Rodriguez-Casanova, who is one of the founders of Dimension Variable. During the art fair days, we had an open-minded and enlightening conversation with him. Those who want to know more about Untitled Art and the art scene in Miami during December, we recommend listening to our episode from December 2022 about Miami Beach.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you for meeting with me here. We have a little bit of noise in the background, but I think it will be okay to talk in the middle of this. It's also kind of nice to be on the actual scene of action. But if you could briefly introduce yourself and your gallery as a start, please.
Yes. My name is Leyden Rodriguez-Casanova. I am the co-founder and co-director of Dimensions Variable. Dimensions Variable was founded by myself and Francis Tremella, my partner, in 2009. So we've been around for 13 years. And we founded it as just a space to be able to produce projects and show artists that we were looking at, that we were interested in, that were influential to us, and to just create an additional platform for contemporary art in Miami. As we continued with the project, we began to grow into our curatorial eye and curatorial style, which was basically stemming from our own artistic practices. So a lot of the work, artists that we work with, and the exhibitions we curate stem from the ideas, the materials, the things that we're considering and thinking about within our own work. And both of us, we've been artists for many, many years. We've worked with many galleries, museum shows and museum collections, and we've kind of been around the block in terms of the art world. And so after we began the project, we also started to notice that there were certain things that we wanted to disrupt within the inner workings of relationships within art and galleries and artists and museums, and so as artists we wanted to kind of rethink some of these ideas.
So was that because that you have had an experience of being in lack of control if you are relating the more traditional galleries, or?
Well, I mean, we had some challenges, for example, my work has always struggled to meet the requirements of a market, meet the requirements that art dealers sometimes need, which is art that is moving in a market. And Frances, she engaged the market a little bit better, but we did run into certain problems that just maybe lack of trust or lack of transparency, or things were selling and going to collections and maybe we weren't aware of it, or we might not be getting paid, or just all kinds of things that we were kind of observing that started to influence some of the decisions that we began to make. And so one of those decisions, for example, is that we decided that Dimensions Variable as a gallery or project space, that it needed to become nonprofit. And the reason for that is because we believe, and this is our personal take on how we continue to make art, is that we believe that there should be a financial support that is independent from the work itself. Just because we believe that the work should have a certain purity of idea that a market may not necessarily call for.
Okay, so you mean the problem is that if you make art for the market, then you have to make a certain kind of packaging of your art, because otherwise it will not be sold. So it is kind of to get out of that trap that you are separating.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
We learned a lesson when we did a collaboration in Norway in Stavanger, Norway, with dear friends of ours that used to run a space which is no longer open, called Project Room Normans. And we went to do the project, and we had multiple meetings and a lot of conversations. We even met with the Norwegian cultural minister that was talking with them, and they were just asking us questions too, because we were the Americans that dabble in the private sector more than they do, and so they were interested in some of our ideas. But one of the things that I learned was that art can be tainted by a private sales market. It can also be tainted by a public granting market. And so what we're advocating for is financial independence of the work, so that your ideas are not dependent on attracting, granting, boards.
So, because that is regardless where the money comes from.
Regardless where the money comes from. And that was the lesson that we learned in Norway, because we were speaking a lot about how we thought that the American art market was really affecting the kind of work that we were seeing. And they agreed, but they also were letting us know, well, our work is affected by granting boards. And so you guys are making art for the market, we're making art for grants.
It's true, that's true.
And so that was shocking to me. And so that was a lesson learned, where it's like, it's just financial independence. It is having the independence to say that I don't have to necessarily consider an idea that I'm working on for my personal safety and my well-being, in terms of having housing, having food to eat, being able to pay my mortgage or rent, or these things. And so we're very passionate about that financial independence of work. So that said, we really began to understand that the gallery needed to be nonprofit, so that we can advocate for raising money through public support, state, federal, even county and city grants, foundation grants, individual donations, but also art sales, and all of the other things that come with.
But to understand it correctly, this means that this way of collecting financial support is kind of detached from the artworks itself.
Yeah.
So you try to raise funding for or finance for the gallery or for the projects, or how is it separated from the? how's the financial thing separated from the artworks itself?
What I was saying about financial independence of the artwork was within our own art practices, we were very adamant that we needed to separate those two things. In terms of the space, the way that we tried to separate those things is that instead of deciding that we're going to be a for-profit gallery and only engage in market activity, or we're only going to be an art center nonprofit and only engage in granting activities, we're saying we want to engage in all of it, because in order to alleviate the pressures of one or the other, we have to really combine everything together. So, for example, early in our careers, we were developing solo shows at a gallery where we had to put, we were emerging artists, so we had to invest most of the money in our project and hope that we would be able to sell work. We have some peers who have been able to have galleries pay for framing or those things. But even if that happens, if you sell our work, you still have to pay the gallery back production and so on and so forth. So we were always really careful about those things. What we're saying now is, with our project, is we're saying, hey, we're inviting you to do a solo show. Up front, we're giving you a stipend, like a museum or an art center. But we're also going to try to sell the work and give you 70% of the profit instead of 50%. All of it is so that we can put more money in the hands of the artists, because our financial structure doesn't only depend on sales. So we don't have to take 50% of that, because we're offsetting the expenses with granting mechanisms.
So in principle, you have different parallel strategies.
Yeah.
And that means that you are not stuck just because one is failing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that is often the problem, that people rely on one source. Yeah. And then suddenly one day, of course, you're going to be backstabbed, because that happens.
Exactly. And not only that, but for example, if you wanted to do the fair circuit, you are charged more money as a regular for-profit gallery than you are as a nonprofit. And so we can have more possibility for a better economic outcome as being a nonprofit, because we get nonprofit discounts at a lot of the art fairs, as opposed to a for-profit gallery that has to pay the premium. So there are many ways in which we're trying to navigate the system for the benefit of all of us, all the artists. And then the other way in which we decided that we were going to try to really rethink how to create a project that's beneficial and sustainable is that we have a large space now that has 3 galleries. But within that space, we've always decided this, since we opened the space, that our studios must come with the space. Because part of our quote-unquote salary for running the project is that our studios are free. And we have had many opportunities where we had collaborators that wanted us to do the project, but there wasn't enough space for our studios to be there, and we said we can't do it, because part of why we do this is because the city is becoming more and more expensive and more difficult to have a studio, and our studios must be in the project. If not, we can't do this, Then when we moved into the larger building, we decided that we wanted to expand that and bring more artists on board. And the idea there is that instead of having an art center or a gallery that has a team of collaborators that are helping, instead of having offices, we'd rather have those offices be studios for the very artists that work for the project. Because many times in museums or galleries or whatever, you end up having a staff that's made up of artists, but they only work for you and they go to an office that doesn't help them in any way other than give them a salary. That's great. But we were like, hold on, how can we use space wiser? And
so when you're there, you actually also work on your.
So when we're in the studio, we work on activities for the gallery within our own studios.
Okay.
Because really, all the work we're doing for the gallery is on computer anyways. So everybody has a little table, and then everybody is able to work on their work while they're also doing the responsibilities of the space. And the other added bonus to that is that when we receive people for openings, they're going into everybody's studios and seeing their work. And this is by no means anything new, but we're just really been trying to just think about how to elaborate on it, how to make it work. And so 13 years later, we're still navigating that.
But maybe the new thing in it is that it's more kind of an open door perspective than it used to be. That this idea of opening the studio, the space where the artist is something that the audience also are attracted to. I think the art audience also like to see what you're doing,
exactly,
and not only the
exactly.
artworks. And that I think is a development in the art scene that there is this tighter relationship between the audience and the artist.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, and for example, there are many art centers that have many studios. We certainly have some of those here.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that they put emphasis in the privacy of the artist, which I totally understand. And the artists, they can choose to have their door closed or their door open, but there is that layer where if the artist is not there, they have the door closed for privacy, and I completely understand that. However, our team, it's understood that if you have a studio, it's very much like a booth. Doors are open, and if many of us can't be there, but someone has a tour coming through or a curator coming through or something, everyone tours them through everybody's studio. And it really creates a team of us that are just working together to support each other and to make sure that the space continues, because it's really to the benefit of all of us.
So you're also saying that it's also a community.
Yeah.
And not a gallery in a traditional sense, but another kind of space or project.
Yeah. I mean, every time I tour everybody through, I stop in everybody's studio, I talk about everybody's work, and it's really, it just develops this cohesive structure. And now we're slowly beginning to also develop an international roster of artists. And the reason we're doing that is to further contextualize our project. So we want to work with artists similar to like a gallery, again continuing to like melt things together. And why are we doing that? Because we feel like we have many opportunities, like doing a fair or curating a project, where we want to develop a core group that we can bring together and do multiple projects and booths and fairs. And we want the group to be a solid group that really speaks to one another, that all the practices are tied together very well. And I feel like it may work better if we have a group of artists. And that doesn't change the fact that, for example, most of the solo shows that we do aren't necessarily from the core group of artists, which is different than what galleries do. A lot of the solo shows we do are invited artists that we're bringing in, that we want to give them an opportunity. Eventually, sometimes we may bring one of those artists that we've already shown into the roster. We have had one or two shows of artists in the roster, but mostly whenever we do that, it tends to be like a group show or something like that. So we want to do both. We want to be open to exploring this, and not necessarily be so rigid like a gallery, to stick with like only these artists that we represent. I also feel that word is strange.
Yeah, of course it is. And what about untitled art? Because you are here and have been here several years, I think. And which kind of opportunities or possibilities does it give you to participate in this fair?
Well, Untitled, we see doing an art fair as more of a marketing outreach, more of a fundraising event, where we get to talk about the work, talk about our program, and hopefully move some work, sell some work. We really don't consider it at all as a serious curatorial, exercise, because really this is kind of like a mall.
I remember that you told me that the other day, and I thought it was an interesting.
I think that many of our peers, including myself and my partner Francis, and many of the folks we talk to, they get very depressed at this time.
Okay.
Because our exercise in the curatorial process of building a strong exhibition is really completely discarded at this time. And so many, tiny booths and all this work everywhere. It's very exhausting. It can be very depressing because you're so confronted with the exercise of sales, of commerce, of that part of the art world. So it can be very, very stressful, very,
So you think that actually this whole thing about a week in Miami with a lot of art fairs is more counterproductive towards the production of art than enhancing it?
I would not say it's counterproductive. I would still be positive with that, and I would say that what happens in Miami during this time, I think, is incredibly important, because the amount of curators, the amount of directors, the amount of collectors, the amount of people that are interested in contemporary art that come here during this time is unbelievable. And so it opens up so many possibilities to have FaceTime with these people, to have them come to the gallery, to even engage with them at a limited time when they come to the booth. So that's why we've begun to understand this is a time to connect, to have conversations, to talk about the program, and to promote the program. And so this comes out of our marketing budget. It's not really,
So that is what you mean when you're kind of phrasing it as a shopping mall, because it's another kind of exercise than doing art on a everyday basis.
It's a similar exercise to early in November we had a fundraiser. And I hate fundraisers, but we have to do them, because there's one thing to have a very idealistic thinking about what art is, but then there's the grown-up part of what art is, which is that if you want to give art a platform, if you want to fund the making of art, if you want to publish content and essays about art, if you want to archive the historical process of art and the cultural aspect of art, you have to find the money somewhere, right? And so Francis and I have come to an understanding that on the one hand, we are tired of many of our artist peers speaking in a form of victimhood about the funding of art. They're always talking and very upset with the collectors and these people that are in positions of power. And so we have begun to say, if you are upset with the levers of power, then you must engage with us to try to raise money for ourselves to do something different. And so that's effectively also what we're trying to do, which is trying to create a different platform, a diverse platform, add new voices. And so when we come to the table, where there are many of the folks who are part of the power structures in Miami that are curators, that are collectors, museum directors, gallerists. My partner and I, we are artists that are sitting at this power table trying to remember the interests of artists. And I think more artists need to do that. More artists need to be on boards, and more artists need to be leaders, so that we can be conscious about some of those issues. And sometimes we do notice that we have members of our board that come from the business sector, that are attorneys, that are philanthropists, that are and sometimes their thinking is very much in the business world, and we have to educate them, and we have to try to help them understand that some of the decisions that we make will not always be good for business, but that is not the point. So
because there's a difference. Art is a little bit a specific area, and it is different than producing buildings or something. Or just trying to move as much work as you can possibly can. And it's like, okay, I understand why someone might want to do that, but one example I can give you is our studios. We have 5 studios, and I was having a conversation with the board, and I was letting them know that our studios are tenured studios, where the artists can have the studios as long as they want to be a part of our team. The moment that they don't want to contribute anymore to our community, then they can go. They can go at any time. And the board was not understanding that. They were like, well, 1, why aren't you charging rent? 2, why don't you have a residency structure where it's 6 months or a year? And our response was, it is very hard to make art. And to make art, it is a long process. And you cannot have every program be a 6-month residency, because that does not help the artist to really develop a body of work that may take years. But not only that, but an artist needs a consistent and place to work. But I also think that many artists have this feeling that if I have to use a lot of time finding residencies or finding peace where I can work, then there is all this office work of trying to find these places.
Oh yeah. Totally. So it's a lot of work.
So you are trying to also eliminate this not waste of time, but still time which goes from the real art process. And not only that, but residencies are wonderful things. I'm not against residencies at all. I've done many of them. But there's a difference in which you go to a residency and you have some time to meet that community in a different location. But what ends up happening is, after you do the residency, you're back on the street because your time is up there. And it's like, once you've connected and made relationships and possibly coordinated some opportunities, where do you have to execute those opportunities? And so you need a place that you can know, I'm coming back here and I have the time and I'm not under pressure of a ticking clock or any kind of situation like that. So we're slowly trying to make the residencies better. Our ultimate plan is for the artists within our residency are part of our team, but instead of them contributing some money financially for utilities, that we would actually be paying the artists, so that the work that they're contributing to the community by organizing events, curating exhibitions, helping to install these things. Right now, those things are part of their duties for rent-free studios. But we would also like to extend a financial compensation for that, because we'd like to help fund their practice. But that ultimately comes with financial means. Okay, thank you very much.
You're
Unless
welcome.
there's something on your mind that you want to say.
I think touching on Untitled, the other reason we do Untitled is because we think it's a great fair. We've done Untitled since the beginning. And just the way that Untitled has open spaces and the lighting and everything here and how it's curated, it's really fantastic fair.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In one of the everyday exhibition spaces in Miami Beach, Alte Art Gallery, located in Lincoln Road, we met the Ecuadorian artist Edison Peñafíel and had a conversation with him. Among his artworks, Alte Art Gallery also has a number of studios where artists are working. Our conversation takes place in his studio in Alte Art Gallery with not only his finalized artworks but other work utilities as well.
I am Edison Peñafíel. I am a visual artist. I'm originally from Ecuador, and I'm based here in South Florida, in Miami.
Okay. And can you tell a little bit about the artworks we have? There's two screens here in your studio, which is displaying some images.
Yeah, the one on the left is an NFT project collection that comes from a previous project called Mare Magnum. Mare Magnum is the old name that the Greeks gave to the Mediterranean Sea. And since this project was created as a site-specific piece for my first solo show in Europe, in Madrid, with my gallery, Sabrina Mrani Gallery in Madrid, I decided to kind of start this conversation between what is happening in that area of the world with migration in the Mediterranean, but also what has happened here historically in the Caribbean, right? In Miami and the migration waves that come from the different parts of the Caribbean, Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and all of that area. So this one is it's an animation of a seascape, made out of paper cutouts, and we have different boats of different historic times, I guess, and rafts. Some look Viking, some look more modern, and some just look like a pile of wood pieces. Some have some oil drums, and I have these characters that
So it is all in black and white.
It's
and
all
they
in-
have kind of the images has kind of different kind of masks, which
Yeah.
refer to different kind of heritage, I think.
Yeah, well, it's to. I like to show that these are wearing masks.
Yeah.
These masks are originally from Ecuador, from my home country.
Yes.
And we use them for Años Viejos, which is a paper doll puppet that we build and burn at the end of the year, right at midnight. And right before burning it, you beat the crap out of it, and just to release everything. And it's a representation of the past year. Yeah.
So it's a ritual with kind
It's
of
a ritual.
cleansing or kind of a purifying
Yes.
ritual of the past.
Yes,
Recent
of that piece, of past year. And sometimes there's political figures or whoever was relevant during that time. Yeah. But taking these masks, which are paper mache, and seeing the struggle that this paper doll figure goes through, right, for this ritual. But paper mache is also used for piñatas, and piñatas goes through a struggle as well, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to bring this element that is part of my culture into my work to also bring the struggle that migrants go through in these journeys, right? But the mask is, even though I'm all the characters in this series, is to cover the identity. I want you to see that it's a mask that I'm wearing. Yeah. So it's covering an identity. When you migrate, you're trying to hide, right? You try to adapt to a new culture. If you don't have documents, you use fake documents, right? To be able to work.
Okay, and you think this is the mask as a symbol of that disguise somehow, or
different identity.
The different layers that the mask can bring into the conversation. I'm just putting some elements there for the conversation to happen. And this is not specific, this is very general. So I'm not talking about any specific group of people or region or age or anything. And as you can see, some of the characters wear different type of clothing that is not specific to any place. And some of them are very patterned with triangles and polka dots and lines and you name it. In a way,
it's not like it doesn't really fit together. It's just something that you can see has been picked because it was the only option, maybe.
Yeah, and to not represent anybody.
Oh, okay.
And make it super absurd as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So the idea of absurdity, cartoonish.
Yeah.
But to represent something that is happening in the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the aesthetic also that comes from German Expressionism and also old French cinema in a way is bringing that kind of cartoonish quality, unreal, surreal quality, but to present you something that is happening in the world. So I attract you that way visually to present you this issue.
And you call it a seascape. So it's like we are underwater, or
well, this is
underwater, or
there's like this is supposed to be what's the name of this? Okay, this collection is called Ultramarini, Mare Magnum Ultramarini. Ultramarini means those who come beyond the sea.
Those
who come beyond the sea.
Okay.
Yeah, or those from beyond the sea. And it's the moment where there's people still in the boat, but they're getting off the boat, right? Yeah, so it's that moment of arrival.
Yeah, okay.
So the NFT series just focuses on that specific moment. The piece that I showed you, which is the installation that was presented at Sabrina Morani Gallery as a video, is the moment of the trouble. And they're trapped there forever. They never get off the boat.
Where you see them
in the sea.
Try to go somewhere.
Yeah. And I have another collection of photographs that they are already on land and they have been processed by an immigration entity. So there's small photographs, like probably 8 by 6 inches. And there's a stamp for each one of the photos, and the photos are unique. So it's like they have been processed by
customs.
Whatever.
So these are on these online screens, but they are also, as I can understand, you also work in print, or photographical print, or is it digital?
So my work develops from the camera. So even if I do paintings, I do ceramics, or I do anything, it starts with the camera. So I consider my work camera-based work. From there, it can be stop motion animation, it can be video, it can be digital compositions, but all the raw footage is collected through the lens to bring the idea of reality, right? Because the camera captures reality, and this is the reality that I'm creating to present. Even if it looks absurd, I'm presenting you something that references a real event, which is kind of like me being the media, right?
Because you think that the camera and the photograph, or what you call it, is kind of it's a transfer between fiction and documentary in many, because we have this idea about the camera as picturing reality, but when you are working, you are also
manipulating it
you are
to the extreme.
An aesthetic expression also.
Yeah, but it's to document in my studio the reality, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then there's another screen next to it, which is in color, and which has these creatures, which also has a mask, which looks like they look human, but they also look like something, like some other kind of creatures who are slowly walking towards each other or away from each other or after each other.
Yeah, this other color screen is a test for a bigger project that I'm working on right now. It's a movie that is going to be called Arcturus and the Arces and Theses of Time. So we have this group of people, of humanoid or zoomorphic creatures wearing these paper mache masks of different animals, and they traverse different terrains as they progress their journey. There's 6 different terrains, and the characters adapt as they need to face this new terrain. They start as a group of sheep, then they transform to a group of ants, and then to wolves, and then to dogs, and then to sardines, and finally to a group of swallows, only to come back again to be sheep. So in a perpetual loop.
Yeah. And they are trying to change their identity to be able to exist,
to face the challenges of that terrain, right?
Okay, which they cannot interpret it directly.
Yeah. And there's certain characters that are part of different cultures around the world. I'm including Greek mythology, so I have characters that are going to be a representation of Zeus, Poseidon. I have Arcturus, which is my main character. I have Callisto. I have Artemisa and Hera. We're gonna be changing the names of those, but to give some reference to the main characters. And this project is gonna be like it's a journey, right? Of these animals, of these people that needed to transform in animals to be able to move from one place to the other for the many different reasons each couple or individual have to migrate or go through this journey. But it's also, since I'm mixing it with Greek mythology, with all these deities, and also in this mix I'm bringing Mexican culture, Latin American culture, other deities as well, and his stories and myths. So it is seeing how the history repeats itself throughout the different cultures, right? It's like, for example, I found out that the story of King Arthur repeats in different cultures, and my Arcturus is that main character, right? And he needs to, in this movie, he will need to reach that point where he becomes a bear, because Arcturus, the etymology Arcas is the bear, and Arcturus means the protector of the bear. Okay. So his final transformation will be a bear in the 4th scene of this installation. Yeah.
So you are based in Miami?
I am based in Miami.
And how long have you been in Miami?
I have been here for 20 years already. 20 years. Yeah.
So do you have any opinion about art in Miami, being an artist in Miami? Because there's some kind of a hype about Miami. Miami has been a growing art space. There's a lot of art fairs, especially in this week, of course. But what is your opinion about that? And how is the everyday life for an artist in Miami?
Well, as any other artist around the world, in the beginning you struggle. Luckily, I've been able to focus on my art, and through different grants, I've been able to create these projects. And for example, this movie project needs a major budget, $200,000. So I'm half of that right now for the production. Yeah, so I'm very happy because of there has been a lot of support from different institutions here in South Florida. But you need to do the work for that. Yeah, you need to apply. You need to present work that represents the work that represents you, and that they're gonna see that you're gonna be able to fulfill this project. And I'm here at Light Arts, which is an artist residency for 1 year. They are very supportive, but again, you need to do the work.
Yeah. So you mean that being an artist on a daily basis is kind of a little bit separated from this international hype about Miami. So it's two different things, or maybe, or how
how are you experiencing that? Does it kind of benefit artists in Miami that there is this perspective on Miami as being maybe one of the art cities in the States nowadays?
Yeah. I think that there should be more opportunities during this week, right? During the Miami Art Week. We have Basel, we have all the satellite fairs, and you don't see that many local artists during that time when everybody is focused on Miami, right? We have this opportunity right now here, open studios and exhibition at Light Arts. But other than that, I don't have any show going on right now during Basel.
So you mean it is kind of separate layers somehow, and a lot of the people who come from the art fairs, maybe some of us, of course, come here and maybe also to some galleries if we're invited. But otherwise, people would go to Art Basel and to Miami Art and Design Miami and Pinter, maybe if you are interested in art from the South. It makes sense somehow. No, it's also just because I'm curious about this identity of Miami as an art city, because it has kind of, it's something that I realized over the last couple of years, and then I come here to see what is really on the ground in Miami.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It transforms from the rest of the year during this week. Yeah, all the museums throw their biggest show, and it's incredible. And having that opportunity as an artist, not the opportunity to show, but to consume that type of work is great, right? We have an exhibition right now at PAM, which is amazing, by this Argentinian artist. I forgot the name, Ehrlich. And this other exhibition at the Bass Museum, another Argentinian artist. Massive work that you don't see it during the year, but during these days.
Thank you very much. What is a conversation about art? And who is the artist? Not an artist as an individual person, but the artist as a phenomenon, as a situated practice in space, a blowing wind. In our work, we conduct conversations without manuscript. Therefore, we refuse to use the term interview, because the interview is connected to either research or journalism. In both cases, the aim is to extract data from a victim, the person being interviewed, who is seen as a reflection of reality. In our conversations, we want to unite with the other person and create a relationship. And it is the relationship we are interested in, an expression of friendship between we and the other, the known and the unknown. In the conversations, there is no agenda, only two people getting acquainted. Here, everything is possible, though there is always an introduction and an entry point. Afterwards, we can go in all kinds of directions. Returning to Copenhagen, we encountered a series of art talks by the brilliant curator Iben Bach Elmstrøm from Den Fri Udstillingsbygning, an artist-focused art gallery. She is having conversations with artists about the current exhibition with paintings by the recent deceased Danish painter Oda Knudsen. During these conversations, we are in the room of Oda Knudsen's artworks, and the invited artists are asked to talk about their relationship to Oda Knudsen. During two of these conversations, something striking and exceptional happens. The young painter, Eva Helene Pade, says in the beginning of her talk that in figurative painting, you will meet a wall where you cannot get any further. Whereas abstract art opens up for something different and a more profound artistic practice, though she always returns to the figurative again for the same reason that she sometimes needs to leave the figurative. The figurative is obsessed with mirroring reality and telling a story, while the abstracts will set the artist free to concentrate on color and form. 2 weeks later, we are in the company of another Danish painter, Maria Wehrens, in the same setting. Again, the conversation is moderated by Iben Bach Elmström. Late in the conversation, Maria Wehrens talks about automatic drawing and automatic painting, a method used in the Surrealist movement to produce art directly from the non-conscious, doing art without thinking. We have our own experience with automatic writing. It has been a steady morning ritual for the last 20 years. The technique of automatization begins as unconscious, but during continuous practice you gain control and it becomes conscious. This can be said to be cheating and against the rules, but the art pieces will still appear more fresh and alive with surprising elements and discoveries which would have been impossible otherwise. These talks are not only relevant for their content and because of the artists participating in them, but also the moderator plays an important role. Iben Bach Elmström conducts the talks with a very open mind and giving the artists space and allow them to be what they are, artists. We are being invited inside the laboratory. The format is crucial for the outcome and ensures that regardless of who participates in the sessions, something valuable will be expressed. Last year we had a longer conversation with Iben Bach Elmström about art and curating of art, which will be available later during the spring season when it has been properly edited. Iben Bach Elmström is a curator, or as they choose to call it in Copenhagen, with a somewhat old-fashioned vocabulary, exhibition inspector. And she has herself curated the earlier mentioned exhibition with Oda Knudsen. She has a background in visual art practice, but also holds a master degree in curating from Goldsmiths College, University of London in the UK. It means she has a foot well grounded in art practice as well as in curatorial work. She has often been working with art as a collective process between curator and artists, and also viewing art spaces and practice as a process of research. When we are talking about curating, it is important to also acknowledge the institution where Iben Bach Elmström is currently employed, Den Fri Udstillingsbygning. It was founded in the late 1800s with the aim of having artist-curated exhibitions to bring forward different perspectives on contemporary art. Just to highlight that curating is not necessarily detached from art, artistic practice and the artist, and also to remind us that curating of art exhibitions is not something new, but have existed for a long time. The exhibitions organized by the Surrealist movement can also be perceived and understood as curatorial approaches, although before the concept was invented. These issues and many other related themes are part of our conversation with Iben Bach Elmström, conducted in Danish. Du har lyttet til Fremmedhed og Bekendtskab. Vi findes også på thewhiteafricanblogspot.com, og du kan gå i vores fodspor ved at betræde In My Footstep WordPress.com. Vi er tilbage her på kanalen hver tirsdag aften kl. 19:00 på Tremella Radio. You have listened to Tremella Radio. We'll be back every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. You can also find us on thewhiteafricanblogspot.com, and you are welcome to walk in our footsteps by stepping into In My Footstep WordPress.com.